The night the Duke died, Lady Catherine found me in the library and kissed me with a desperation that tasted of grief and freedom and 15 years of longing we both pretended didn't exist. His body was barely cold in the master bedroom upstairs, surrounded by doctors and servants, and there we were in the shadowed corner of his private study, finally admitting the truth that had lived between us since the day I arrived at Ashford Manor as governess to her daughters. I was a woman of no rank, no fortune, no prospects beyond the generosity of aristocratic families. She was a duchess, bound by duty and marriage and every rule society had written for women like us. And in that moment, with her husband's death releasing her from one cage, we both knew we were about to build another one together, no matter the consequences. If you've ever loved someone you had no right to love, if you've ever hidden your heart for years behind propriety and duty, stay with me. This is my confession, and I need to speak it before history rewrites it into something more palatable. My name is Miss Elizabeth Winters, and I came to Ashford Manor in Hampshire in the year 1878 when I was 5 and 20. I was hired as governess to the Duke and Duchess of Ashford's 2 daughters, Lady Margaret, aged 12, and Lady Anne, aged 9. I was well educated, daughter of a country parson who died, leaving me nothing but a good name and an excellent education. Becoming a governess was the only respectable occupation for a woman of my station, better than marriage to some merchant's son who'd see me as glorified servant anyway. The Duke was a man in his 60s, powerful in Parliament, cold and exacting in his household. He'd married Lady Catherine when she was barely 18, a political match between 2 great families. She was 40 when I arrived, still beautiful with dark hair threaded with silver and eyes the color of storm clouds. She carried herself with the rigid dignity expected of her rank, but there was something in those eyes that spoke of deep loneliness. Our first meeting was in the drawing room, a formal interview where she assessed whether I was suitable to educate her daughters. I remember thinking how sad she looked despite her perfect posture and practiced smile, how her hands trembled slightly when she poured tea. The Duke expects his daughters to be accomplished. Young ladies, she told me in a voice carefully modulated to show no emotion. They must speak French and Italian fluently, understand history and literature, play piano and sing acceptably, and above all, learn the deportment required of their station. I am well qualified in all those subjects. Your Grace, I'll ensure the young ladies receive the finest education. And you'll remember that you're here to educate, Miss Winters, not to become attached or to insert yourself into family matters beyond your role. It seemed a strange warning at the time. Later, I'd understand she was protecting herself as much as reminding me of my place. I fell in love with Lady Margaret and Lady Anne almost immediately. They were bright, curious girls starved for affection their cold father never provided, and their duty-bound mother rarely had time to give. With me in the schoolroom, they could laugh and ask questions and be children. Lady Catherine would sometimes observe our lessons, sitting quietly in the corner. I'd catch her watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read, something between approval and something else, something that made my heart race in a way I didn't understand. 3 months into my position, Lady Anne fell seriously ill with scarlet fever. The household was in chaos, doctors coming and going, the Duke locked in his study, and Lady Catherine sitting by her daughter's bedside day and night, terrified. I stayed too, helping the nurses, reading to Anne when she was conscious, trying to keep Margaret calm while her sister fought for her life. On the 4th night, when Anne's fever finally broke and the doctors said she'd recover, Lady Catherine collapsed from exhaustion. I helped her to her chambers, her lady's maid having fallen asleep. Lady Catherine was delirious, crying, thanking God, apologizing for not being a better mother. I got her into bed, removed her constraining dress and corset so she could breathe, and sat with her. "Don't leave," she whispered, grabbing my hand. "Please, I can't bear to be alone. I won't leave, Your Grace. Rest now." She fell asleep still holding my hand, and I sat there in the dim lamplight, looking at her face relaxed in sleep, finally free of the mask she wore every waking moment. She was beautiful, and I realized with a shock that made me dizzy that I wanted to touch her face, to smooth back her hair too. I stood abruptly, terrified by my own thoughts. These weren't the thoughts a governess should have about her employer. These weren't thoughts a woman should have about another woman. I'd read about such things in whispered scandals, women sent to asylums for such unnatural desires. But there it was, undeniable. I was attracted to Lady Catherine in a way that went far beyond admiration or respect. I tried to suppress it. I reminded myself of my position, of the impossibility, of the wrongness of it all. But over the following months, it only grew stronger. Every time she smiled at me, every accidental brush of hands when we both reached for something, every moment she lingered after checking on the girls' lessons, I felt it building between us like a storm waiting to break. I think she felt it too. I'd catch her staring at me with an intensity that made my breath stop. During dinner parties, when I'd occasionally be asked to join the company to demonstrate the girls' progress, her eyes would follow me around the room. Once in the music room, our fingers touched on the piano keys while I was teaching Margaret, and the look Lady Catherine gave me was so full of longing I had to excuse myself. A year passed, then another. The girls grew older, and my love for their mother grew stronger and more painful. I considered leaving, finding a position elsewhere. But I couldn't bear the thought of not seeing her, even if all we had were these stolen glances and moments heavy with things we couldn't say. Everything changed the summer the girls turned 15 and 12. The Duke took them to London for the season, preparing Margaret for her eventual debut. Lady Catherine claimed illness and stayed at the manor. I stayed too, ostensibly to prepare curriculum for the following term. For 3 weeks we were alone in that vast house except for the servants. And slowly, carefully, we began to drop the pretense. It started with longer conversations. Lady Catherine would come to the library where I spent my evenings, and we'd talk about books, about ideas, about everything except the thing that hung between us. She'd sit closer each night, until finally we were side by side on the settee, our shoulders touching, both of us pretending not to notice. "Elizabeth," she said one evening, using my Christian name for the first time. "May I ask you something personal?" "Of course, Your Grace, Catherine. When we're alone, please call me Catherine." "Catherine," I repeated, loving the feel of her name on my tongue. "Have you ever been in love?" My heart hammered. "No, I've never had the opportunity for such attachments. Not even a youthful fancy? Surely some young man caught your eye." "No man has ever made me feel anything beyond mild friendship." I paused, then added recklessly, "I've come to believe I'm not capable of such feelings. Or perhaps you simply haven't met the right person." She turned to look at me, and in her eyes, I saw my own longing reflected back. "Elizabeth, I need to tell you something, and you must promise not to be frightened or disgusted." "I could never be disgusted by anything you'd say." "You might be." She took a shaky breath. "I've been married to the Duke for 22 years. In all that time, I fulfilled my duty. I gave him daughters, managed his household, represented his family with dignity. But I've never loved him. I've never felt for him what wives are supposed to feel for their husbands. For years I thought myself cold, incapable of passion." "You're not cold," I said softly. "No, I've discovered I'm not. Because for the past 2 years, I've been in torment. I felt things I shouldn't feel, desired things that are forbidden. And the object of these feelings is someone I have no right to want. Someone whose reputation I could destroy. Someone who could be ruined by association with my unnatural desires. Catherine ... My voice was barely a whisper. "It's you, Elizabeth. God forgive me. It's you. It's always been you since the day you arrived. And I know this is wrong and impossible, but I cannot carry this secret alone anymore. I should have been shocked. I should have fled." Instead, I took her hand and said, "It's not one-sided. I feel it too. I've tried to deny it, but I do. I love you, Catherine. I'm in love with you." She made a sound between a sob and a laugh. "What do we do with this?" "We can't act on it. The scandal would destroy us both. You'd lose your position, probably be unable to find another. I'd be sent away, possibly institutionalized. My daughters would be shamed. Then we do nothing. We simply know the truth between us, and we live with it. Can you do that? Can you stay here, seeing me every day, knowing we can never be together? Can you?" "I don't know, but I can't send you away." That would be even worse. For 2 more weeks, we lived in that strange limbo, acknowledging our love but not acting on it. The tension was exquisite torture. Every accidental touch felt electric. Every glance carried the weight of everything we couldn't say or do. Then, on the last night before the Duke and girls were to return, Catherine came to my room. It was midnight, the house asleep. She wore only her nightdress and wrapper, her hair loose around her shoulders. "I couldn't let you go through another day without this," she said, and kissed me. It was soft and tentative and the most perfect moment of my life. When we separated, we were both crying. "We can't do this again," she said. "It's too dangerous." "I know, but I needed you to know. I needed one moment where I could show you what I feel. Thank you for that gift." She left, and I thought that would be the end of it. One perfect, impossible moment to sustain me through the rest of my life, but life rarely follows our plans. The Duke, Margaret, and Anne returned. Life resumed its normal rhythms. Catherine and I went back to our careful distance, our appropriate interactions, but something had changed. Now we both knew, and that knowledge colored everything. 3 years passed. Margaret made her debut, became engaged to an earl's son. Anne blossomed into a spirited young woman. The Duke grew more tyrannical with age, more demanding and cold. And Catherine and I continued our careful dance, loving each other from across unbridgeable distances, stealing glances and moments, but never again crossing that line. Then, when I was 31 and Catherine was 44, the Duke suffered a massive stroke. He lingered for 3 days, paralyzed and unable to speak, his doctors saying it was only a matter of time. On the third night, as the house held its breath waiting for death, Catherine found me in the library. And that's where this story began, with that desperate kiss in the shadows while her husband died upstairs. "I can't do this anymore," she said against my lips. "I've wasted 25 years in a loveless marriage. However many years I have left, I want to spend them with you. Catherine, even as a widow, we can single quotes we'll be discreet. You'll be my companion, my friend. The world will see what they expect to see. 2 women living together for company and economy. Only we'll know the truth. Your family will object. My daughters are nearly grown and will have their own lives. The Duke's family has never cared for me. Let them object. I'll be a widow doing what widows do, living quietly with a respectable companion. And if people suspect, then we'll bear that burden together. Elizabeth, I've done my duty for 25 years. I've been the perfect duchess, the obedient wife, the proper mother. For whatever time I have remaining, I want to be Catherine. Just Catherine, who loves you and wants to build a life with you." The Duke died that night. Catherine went through the mourning period with appropriate dignity, the model of bereaved widowhood, despite feeling only relief at her freedom. Margaret married her earl and moved to his estate. Anne went to live with her aunt in London for her season. And 6 months after the Duke's death, I became Lady Catherine's official companion. We moved to a smaller estate in Cornwall, away from London society. We told people we were cousins, or sometimes just dear friends seeking each other's company in our later years. But in our private moments, in the home we made together, we were simply 2 women who loved each other. We had our own rooms for appearances, but Catherine slept in my bed more nights than not. We walked the coastal paths holding hands where no one could see. We read poetry to each other and talked late into the night and lived the life we dreamed of for so many years. It wasn't perfect. There was always the fear of discovery, always the need to be careful. Some of the local gentry whispered. Catherine's brother-in-law tried to have her declared incompetent to manage her own affairs, though the courts disagreed. Margaret visited rarely and never brought her children, as if afraid our supposed deviance was contagious. But we had each other. We had 15 years together before Catherine passed away peacefully in her sleep at age 59. 15 years of love and companionship and the freedom to be ourselves. I'm 70 now, living alone in our cottage. The world has changed little for women like us. We still must hide, still must pretend, still must live in the shadows. But I wouldn't change a single moment of my life with Catherine. Those 15 years were worth all the years of longing that came before and all the lonely years that have come after. If you've ever had to hide who you love, If you've ever had to wait years for a chance at happiness, share your story in the comments. And subscribe for more stories about women throughout history who loved each other despite every obstacle society placed in their way. Because our stories matter. Our love mattered. And someone needs to remember that we existed, that we loved, that we were real.